Welcome to another episode back after our break, right? With casual conversations with Ms. Ramirez and Dr. DeVries and yours truly, right? So today we're talking about what are we talking about today, Dr. DeVries?
Well, we're currently kind of in the midst of a national crisis, and we thought we would spend some time talking about how to deal with that personally, so that you don't lose your focus on the things that are important to you right now. Uh, what So you don't lose that focus, because it would be really easy, and it's something that I've noticed in myself since Wednesday afternoon, when my husband came into my home office and he said, "Hey, did you know they've stormed the Capitol?" And I didn't, because I'd been working and hadn't had the news on or hadn't been on social media. And I watched myself kind of spiral uh, over the next, 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, where I was, kind of consumed uh, with the crisis. And this morning, I had a realization. I was, doing some journaling and doing some reflecting, and just had a realization of how bad that spiral was for me personally. And so um, I just felt like we should share, maybe some ideas for our students, because it's troubling to everyone, and just want to help students, find ways of coping with the problems of the world personally, because it can be really difficult, I think, for all of us. But I think especially when you're a young person trying to make plans for your future and having this real ominous sense of uncertainty in the world around you. So that's what we're talking about today.
I mean, I know my answer. It's always simple.
What's your answer? How do you deal with what's going on in the world right now, Mr. Taylor?
I I observe and I just take it all in. One of my key things that I do with my coaching clients and all that, and myself, this is what I use on myself, is I can control what I can control. And the only thing that I can control is me and what I do on a daily basis. So that's why it's simple for me to say it's our habits. Like, what are we doing on a regular basis that'll keep us in the routine with chaos all around us? So we're still focused on going towards that ultimate goal, because we don't know where we want. We know where we want to go, but we don't want to stop the progress that we and the strides that we're taking, even in the midst of a pandemic, even in the midst of a crisis. We still have to be, those steps might not be huge, but they might be still small and incremental, that are putting us in the position to get whatever we want once we come out of it. Like, you don't want to have lost that this, we're going on a year now. You telling me you just stopped and watched Netflix the whole time? Like, you still, like, not everybody's gonna die, not everybody's gonna get sick, not everybody's gonna lose jobs. So you have to be still in your path and doing, having some sense of normalcy inside of what you're doing and the direction you're going. So I always go, I can control what I can control. It took a long time for me to get to that point, to understand that, like, oh, all of these people are around me that are talking negative, or, these don't believe in me, or these people do believe in me, like, how do I juggle all that and still stay on my path? I can only control what I do on a daily basis. So if my routine is go to work, go to group fitness classes, go Uber drive, read, like I gotta stay in those things unless something just makes me just go away from that.
Mhm.
And I struggled at the beginning of the pandemic to get back in a routine because I wasn't going to the gym. I wasn't going, doing all these different things. So now I had to adapt in a way that now I have a system that works for me. It took a while, but I still have to make strides towards what I want to do ultimately
Absolutely.
and make those millions and millions of dollars.
That's right. Mr. Ramirez, over the last couple of days, as we've watched, yet another crisis descend on us, what are some things that you have kept going, or that you wish you would have kept going in your normal routine, uh, to kind of keep you focused on the present instead of the present, I guess the present for you instead of the present for the whole globe?
I think I agree with Mr. Taylor in the sense of it takes practice and it's something that doesn't happen overnight. I definitely when I was in high school, I definitely was that I'm a very empathetic person. So, oh my gosh, it's terrible though. Like well, I mean it's good, but it's got like it's to a point where if I see someone crying, like I will start tearing up because of just how intense I'd be feeling like
Mhm.
those emotions of other people. So when I was in high school, like and things like would get to me a lot, and it would just kind of make me feel down when other people were down in the sense, especially like global
Mhm.
stuff and all
Mhm.
that. But once I got into college, like my freshman year, so 2016, the election happened and things like that. Um, and so there was a lot of I don't know if you guys kept the like uh like all the stuff that was going on in K-State, like some of it was on the news and it was like national headlines because it was just racial incidents that happened on campus. We had a lot of incidents that happened on campus. And so I guess my freshman year of college is when I really started realizing that um things are going to happen like out of my like Mr. Taylor said, out of my control. And of course, like it's gonna push against like my focus because you can't sit in class and not kind of get distracted from what's going on outside, but you have to know when and like you have to work on knowing when and where you can like invoke those emotions, I guess. So that was something that I started learning my freshman year, and I guess what really helped was just finding people that I could talk to about what was going outside in the real world, and make sure that you know I knew how to balance that stuff, because if you spend so much time just focused on the issues of the world, you're gonna drive yourself crazy because there's so many issues and there's so much that you want to do and want to fix, and you have to realize that you can start small. Like you can work on your community, and that's actually really important work, like working with even your school and then moving forward and like working with like an issue in your community, like starting local um can help, and it's just something that um for myself, like I write a lot, not necessarily like journaling, but I like to write like music. So I'll write I'll write political raps, things like that. I do my own point of view and how I'm feeling, and I do that for just, I want to say fun, but just as a way to express myself and then to get those thoughts out of my head. So then I'm able to like go on with my day. Like I'm able to be like, okay, you know what? Like I wrote what I was feeling, and then like venting, even if it's to yourself, it's a very like I mean for myself, it's just very easy for me to get things off my chest and be able to move on, because you always want to acknowledge your emotions. Like you don't want to like brush them aside or like hide them, because they will, you will become overwhelmed, and one day everything's just gonna like spill, and it can make you get a lot of anxiety and sadness and all this stuff. So I would always say, like, find a way to explore your emotions and be able to um put them in a healthy, positive way, but like always acknowledge your emotions. Don't hide your emotions. um and just practice. Like, it won't happen overnight. You have to be patient and be able to, kind of like Mr. Taylor said, is um just work on it and find something that's going to help you. um you know, for me, it's just that, or I'll go play soccer, because when I go play soccer, like I clear my mind. I'm only focused on this on the soccer game. So any other issues going outside in the world, honestly, like, they leave my mind. And once I'm off the field, I'm just like, okay, I'm able to breathe again. I'm able to, feel normal.
Yeah. Mr. Taylor, I love that this phrase you said, control what you can control. Um, I mean, as a high school student, what are some things that we have control over? Like, I mean, if I'm 17, 18 years old, I might not even be able to, do a lot of, things like vote and things like that. But what can I control as a high school kiddo?
So the the main topic of this conversation is focus. Like, your focus is the task at hand. So you got to look at graduation. Like, the next step in your process is graduating high school. So what does that entail? That means I need to go to class every day. I need to do my homework. I need to read my books. Like, and those are habits that we can create for ourselves. Plus the the leisure, like the fun. I've said this before on the podcast, that we got to schedule out our fun. So if I know that I go play basketball on every Sunday and I love that Sunday, like I work a whole week for that one Sunday that I go play basketball, and that just brings me enjoyment, and I can go through my week and know that I have some dessert at the end of the week. that that's what I do. And so we got to put in the work, and then schedule the play time, the me time, the fun time. We got to put that in as a habit. And I don't think people understand how powerful a habit is. So in the book, The Power of Habit, they talk about this older gentleman. He had a tumor on his brain, and they cut off like part of his brain where his memory function was. And one day his wife got up and he was just gone. They didn't know where he was. They couldn't find him, but he had a routine that he was doing for 50 years, decades, right? I don't want to say the exact number because I don't know, but he was doing it for decades. Like, he would go get the paper, he would go on a walk, or whatever they said in the book. But his brain, because of that habit, continued to do it with a whole piece of his brain missing, his memory function. He didn't know who his wife was. He didn't know, but that habit, just it was still in him, and it was ingrained in him. And that's what I mean. Habits can be adapted over time, and when we're in high school, we want to just focus on the job at hand, because you'll never be able to change the world unless you finish this part of your journey, right? You got to
Mhm.
complete graduating high school. Then what's next? Usually it's college. So then we have to complete that. So our focus has to be in these in the completion of the task in our journey. So then, yeah, this is what I'm telling all the young people: just absorb what's happening, um, observe, not deal with your emotions, but explore your emotions, like Ms. Ramirez said. And there will become a time where you will be able to change the outcome of the world, but the focus starts right here, right now. And if you don't complete this part of your journey, we're not going to get you to be, because your fight is not now. Your fight is in 20 years when you're an adult and able to be in those offices and make change from an adult standpoint.
Yeah, I was thinking this morning as I was kind of reflecting on the last day and a half about how I missed the habits that I'm trying to develop in myself. So, I my day usually starts with some writing, starts with some coffee, and it starts with some writing and some reading, and some yoga. Although I sometimes do the yoga later in the day, I don't always do it first thing. But those are some things that like I missed on Thursday. Like I didn't do any of those things because I was obsessed, literally obsessed with listening to the news, watching what was happening on social media. I was streaming a newscast on my computer while I was trying to work. So obviously I wasn't fully focused on my work, and I wasn't doing the things that I have this, list that I made on Monday of the things I have to complete this week. And so if I'm going to complete those things, my Friday is going to be like a late night because I've got to get those. I lost part of my work week because of my distraction. So one of the things I was really thinking about this morning is how it's important for me and to know what's going on, but I don't have to know what's going on second by second. I've decided that today I'm not going to do any news related stuff until the end of my workday. And then I'm going to go to a source that I trust as reliable. Like I'm not going to do the whole Instagram, Facebook, Twitter feed. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go to a source that I see as really reliable. And I'm going to take in what happened today. But like, I'm not going to, sit there, every second some analysis of what's going on, because that I realized that just wasn't good for me. And back earlier like last year when COVID was hitting, I got myself in a really bad place, a really dark place, because I was obsessed with what was happening with COVID, and like I
And
couldn't turn off.
you were in China though at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I knew what was happening in Hong Kong and in China, like I was living that. But when it hit the US, uh, yeah, you're right. It was something I couldn't control. Like I could control my reaction in China. I could control what was going on, in my little world, but I couldn't control what was happening where my family was and where some of my dearest friends were. And so like I was obsessed, like would get up in the morning and the news would be on all day from the US. And like I reached a point where it was like, wait a second, this is not good for me. I gotta stop. And luckily I think this time around I realized it earlier. Like within about 20 hours, I was like, this is not good for me. I need to continue to walk. I need to continue to exercise. I need to continue to read for pleasure and read for knowledge about things that I'm interested in, and not be focused on this.
Solely on that, because
Yeah.
I had it too, so I was interested in it. And I felt it last night when I was doing my workouts. I was like, I can't focus and I'm tired. I'm not doing the same amount of weight in my cycle class. I couldn't get to the zones that the power
Mhm.
zones and things. And I was like, oh, it's because I stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning watching videos. And I mean, I was just interested in it because I was doing something else while everything was going on. So I was like, all right, let's see all of and I like to hear both sides of it. And a lot of the conservative people that I know are, I don't even like to throw those words out there because I don't know what they mean, but but a lot of people that support that side, they weren't saying anything, and I'm like, okay. So I like to hear all sides. I'm just one of those people. I just like to see it and explore everybody's point of view. And I just was like dead last night because it was 2 days going on 2 days of, you know, lack of sleep.
Yeah.
You stayed up till 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, got up at 7:30 to work, and what what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I did not have energy yesterday. I fell asleep quickly. You know, when I was trying to, not fall asleep, and I did fall asleep. So, yeah, yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, I
So,
It's exhausting. You just have to give yourself breaks though,
yeah.
because if you stay too much on social media, it will eat you up.
mhm. And not to talk about what I've been obsessing over, but I did hear a story yesterday. Um, and one of the questions I think is going to come out of what's happened is, what is the role of social media uh, and this, you know, unregulated part of our lives, and what role did it play and what role does it play as we're watching things like this unfold. Um,
And I think a part of that should be the responsibility factor. Who has total like responsibility? Because there's a lot of nuances to that.
Mhm. Absolutely.
That
And that it
because
goes back.
if you don't have 100 million people looking at every single post or every
Sure.
single blog post, every single video, like that's unrealistic to put that on a public site. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, I think. I mean,
Mhm. It is an interesting question, but I think Mr. Taylor, you've hit it right on the head when you say you can control what you can control. And for me, and I think for a lot of our students, that's going to be me setting some limits on my time on social media. And I have some limits set, like on my phone. I limit myself to an hour a day on social media. But like the last 2 days, it says you've reached your limit, and I was like, extend the limit, extend the limit, extend the limit. So I mean that.
I think, uh, and this is me getting a little bit like too analytical, is that it's a little bit deeper. It's being able to be in control of our emotions. To control your emotions, control your life is one of the phrases that I use.
Mhm.
So if I can control my emotions, whether they're heightened or lower, just
Mhm.
wherever they go, and still be rational in my thinking and logical in my thinking. I don't think we look at the outside more than we look at the inside, and we are limiting ourselves to social media so that it puts a block on what we can't control within ourselves. And it just comes down to the in simplest form of we have to control ourselves more than we have to limit ourselves to social media. So I use social media, like I do go down those rabbit holes, and I've been down a rabbit hole since the pandemic started, but like I still have a focus. And even though my focus has um, it went from 90% looking at what people are doing to build their brand and things like that, to get ideas for what I'm doing. Um, if it's not 90%, now it's like 50%. So, but I'm still making progress towards my goal. And it's not limiting, but you have to go back to what your focus is. Like my focus is on social media marketing at one aspect of my life. So I have to be on it to understand it.
Sure.
But, and then I can follow things that bring me motivation, inspiration, sports, these type of things that aren't necessarily negative. And then we have to identify what's positive and what's negative in social media. So I mean, we have to really break that down into it, because you can put a limit on it, but then when that limit gets extended and extended, we're still going into the same thing. We're still doing the same thing. And if we change the days, it's still the same thing. We just put a limit on it. But if we change our mindset towards and our and controlling our emotions, and I'm gonna stay away from like these people that or I'm gonna block or unfollow these people that bring up negative emotions in me. And it's all about positive and negative. So if I have more negatives than positives, I probably need to adjust what I'm doing at that time.
Yep. And back to Ms. Ramirez's point about dealing with your emotions, controlling your emotions is important, but controlling your emotions doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. So, and I kind of think that we send that message, being in control means not having an emotional reaction, and that's really not true. It's okay to have emotional reactions, but you got to deal with it. You can't just try to ignore it or, push it aside. It's really unhealthy.
So we even have to break that down, emotional reactions. So we can be emotional, but our reaction still has to be logical and not based off of emotion, because emotion gets us out of our logical thinking that leads to irrational behaviors or irrational reactions to whatever that triggers that emotion. So you always have to, once you go there and once you recognize something builds you up, like racism and things that are like the interactions between people I know about race that affect me, get me riled up. But I still have to come back and be like, all right, what is my reaction going to be towards that? And I can't just go off and yell at them, but I have to come with logic and give facts and and be on my game, because once you get into that emotional, and I learned this from basketball, like I played an undersized position, so I would push and do all these different things to the bigger players, which would get inside their emotions, and they would get mad at me and hit me with an elbow, and they would get a foul called on them. So like a long time ago, I learned, I was like, okay, if I can control my emotions more than they can, like I know I'm going to get hit, or but I have to do what I have to do to to stay focused on what I need to do. And that, I mean, we have to really break that down, because our reactions can't be based off of emotions, because we tend to get irrational inside of those emotions.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean,
controlling doesn't mean that the lack of. What'd you say?
I said, I think people usually react before they reflect, and they should work on switching it. So you get hit with something, reflect on it, and then you can react. So it'd be, because I mean, even I'm guilty of that. You jump into conclusions, you start, like molding some type of thought about something, and then you read more about it, and then you're like, oh dang, well, okay, well, I just got angry for no reason, and so then you're like, man, maybe I should have reflected before I reacted.
And we probably should go into like, what does explore mean? Explore those emotions. Like, what does that look like? Because I tell people all the time, I'm like, we tell students and kids to you know do better, or act nice, and what if they don't know what act nice means, and we haven't clearly defined it? So exploring, when I explore my emotions, I look into, like, if it's a racial comment somebody that made, I'm like, okay, what are they saying? Or if they say black people are playing the victim or this and that, like, I look into what that is and why. I don't try to justify my emotion and my reaction to it. I explore why I have that um, emotional reaction to that. And I explore within myself, the experiences of others, and then what I've observed in my life as well. And then I'll read a book about it. I'll usually, at that time when something really hits me, they a book turns up that that is like, oh, in a YouTube video that I started researching the topic on, and then I read the book, and then I have a better understanding of what the situation is, and then kind of the perspective of that other person. Not saying that that other person is right or wrong. It's just exploring what happened without, and then I can come. I don't even have to say anything. I have changed as a person because of that interaction and that emotional response to, and exploring that emotional response. I think I'll be talking too long.
Well, I think the message we definitely want to send to Sumner students right now is, there are always going to be things in life that come up that feel bigger than what we can handle, whether that's something that happens on the national level or the local level or on the personal level. And we have to figure out how to manage ourselves while that's going on. So you have to continue the habits that you're building so that you can not lose sight of what's really important to you, whether that's, high school graduation or college graduation or getting a promotion at a job, or training for a marathon, or whatever you're trying to focus on. You have to keep doing those things that are going to keep you focused, because if you allow yourself to just become obsessed with something that's not part of your focus, it can really derail your plans. And so, hoping that our students feel like they have the tools they need to keep things in perspective. But if they don't, making sure they know that there are lots of resources here at school to help them. I think any one of us would be happy to talk with someone who's struggling, but I also know that we have counselors and social workers who could help with that as well. Um, and just helping students figure out how to manage those big distractions that come in life without letting those distractions, knock them off track and make it difficult to achieve the goals that students have.
Miss Ramirez.
What are we doing? The words, last final words?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. DeVries then gave us some words of wisdom.
Well, yeah, I didn't get that DR in front of my name for not being wise.
Dang. I want to be a doctor, but the way my bank account set up, yeah, we'll think about it later on. I guess for me, I just think of like the world as like, when you're watching like a scary movie, and then it gets too intense. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched one and like when you were younger and like, or even still, I don't know how your guys' level of horror. I love scary movies, but sometimes like if I start getting spooked or something, I'll like once I'm done, I'll go put something happier, like a cartoon or anything that will make me laugh. That's how like that's how I see it. Sometimes the world is gonna be scary, but you have to always find something positive and something to continue for. Tupac, one of my favorite quotes is, if you can't find something to live for, you better find something to die for. And for me, it's just, I always take that because for me, it's just like sometimes like the world, it in a international level, a national level, local level, like Dr. D said, or even a personal level, sometimes it feels like you're pressured a lot, or you have to do certain things, or you're facing a whole bunch of struggles and obstacles. But at the end of the day, like you have to realize, do you want to give up, and give in, or do you want to push forward and give it your all? And you that's just basically, I don't know, that's just how it's always been for me, where it's like I've been in points in my life where I'm just like, dang, maybe I should give up. When the whole COVID, like you guys mentioned, when COVID hit, I was just like, wow, okay, so I had to do student teaching during COVID, which was, not the best thing for a future teacher to have to deal with, but it was something that you that was also going to be beneficial because we stuck with the online learning. So every lesson that you live and learn, even any quote unquote failure that you go through, it's always for something bigger, and you're always going to be able to get something out of it. So don't focus too much on the negative lens, and just try to make the best out of it and flip it. Always try to flip everything.
I would say, no, not what I would say. It's change starts from the top. So I'm going to give you your focus. Your focus is success. And what does that mean to you? And like I said earlier, it comes with the focus of the part of the journey that you're on. We are in high school right now. We have to finish high school. We don't get to the next part unless we finished high school. And ultimate success comes from the top. So we need you to become who you're supposed to become so you can make those changes in what you feel now. So if you feel some type of way about whatever situation is going on, the ultimate goal is to be able to change it. You're not going to be able to change it as a teenager. And you might not be able to change it in your 20s, but maybe in your 30s, after you've experienced some things and got some clarity on your life, then you can start making changes in the world, in your community, and actual changes with your ideas. That's what's the most important thing. That's why I want all of the students to absorb it and observe what is going on, and just feel everything, because I felt everything that happened at 9/11. I was a senior when 9/11 happened. I felt everything that happened during the Great Recession. Like I got out with my master's degree during the Great Recession. I understand the different elements of that. Like I'm in the pandemic, like and everything in between. Those are all experiences that I keep with me and take with me everywhere I go. And those are world events, not just the events that happen in my life. So, but in those times, I still had to focus on where I was going. I still had to do those daily things that were going to put me in position to actually be able to change the world. And that's what we want y'all to do, is be able to change the world. But if you don't go to class, if you don't finish your assignments, we will not see you. I mean, we may see you, but that road will be a little less rocky if we just go ahead and complete this task that we are in right now and focus on getting what needs to be done right now, because I guarantee you, like that change doesn't come from the middle, and that change doesn't come from the bottom. You have to be at the top, and our number one goal is to get you to a place to where you're able to make those decisions and have those experiences that will lead to change in the world. What did y'all say?
Well said, Mr. Taylor. Well said. Well
Thank
said.
you. And we appreciate all of y'all listening and enjoying this podcast. Crucial Conversations is this is amazing to me. I love doing it. So I thank you both for this time.
Thanks for organizing it, Mr. Taylor, and for having this great idea. Because I'll admit, I never would have said, let's do a podcast. Not my thing, but it is really fun. And I always enjoy what we share with each other.
Great,
Same.
great. All right, y'all have a good day, and I'll see y'all
Bye.
next time.